Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. I'm very excited to talk about this one. And I want to just say before I start, this will not probably be the last Wes Anderson movie that I discuss in this channel, just because I think we're going to order Isle of Dogs next on DVD. That one I remember I didn't really care for as much, but that will be interesting if that does turn out to be the next Wes Anderson to watch and review and stuff, just because that's the only other stop motion one at this time. But between the two of them, this one I like. Well, actually, I'd say this movie is probably in my top 5 of Wes Anderson movies. I just don't know where, because I think Rise Kingdom used to be my number 1, number 2 favorite. I think that's a bit more down now. I think Grand Budapest Hotel is still my favorite, and probably Royal Tenenbaums. Life Aquatic's in there somewhere as well, but this one I also really like. It's somewhere in there. I feel like this one's so visually kind of just soothing, I think, because it really uses that orange and yellow color palette, especially because the movie seems to take place in fall. There's just something very kind of relaxing. Not that the movie itself is relaxing. I think it does come off a bit more chill than some of the others, in that instead of being live action, it's stop motion, but it's all of these anthropomorphic animal characters running around and stuff. And then with the color palette, I feel like this is one I could put on just to kind of chill on an afternoon. It definitely gets deep with stuff, especially with its characters. But this one feels a bit more chill, and I like that. I'm also a big fan of the music as well. I forgot there's a couple of Beach Boys songs in here as well. There's one I believe called Heroes and Villains that plays towards the very beginning of the movie. I really like that track in particular. There's also another song called Petey's Song that this character named Petey ends up making up at one point, that kind of is basically describing the plot so far. That one was pretty good. I'm glad it also ends up playing in the credits. And then there's this song about the 3 farmer villain characters, that it's sung by a children's choir, and that song's really good. It's you'd expect it to be used as those 3 characters character theme, but instead it's kind of used more as a Mr. Fox is being kind of triumphant over them sort of song, or when there's a big action scene going on. It's used not too often in the movie. It gets introduced towards the beginning, but I do like the points when it is used. I almost wish it was used more, just because I really like the song. It's catchy, but I'm glad it's not overused or anything. So yeah, all the music is pretty good. There was something about that I was going to say. I don't remember. That's okay. It's been a while since I've seen this movie. This is probably, I believe, my 2nd or 3rd time seeing it. I think I originally watched it with a friend or something. And I actually wouldn't be surprised if this was something that I end up watching with my movie group down the road, or I wouldn't be surprised if they've already seen it. They tend to go more towards animation, whether it's stop motion, 2D, 3D, in some form anyway. So I feel if I got the group to watch the Wes Anderson movies, it would probably end up being this one. But this one I really like. Just the whole stop motion animation of it is crazy. It's really good. I keep thinking about any of the parts when it's Mr. Fox, he's on one of his heists. There's a lot of it. It's basically a heist movie, which is not new to any of the Wes Anderson movies, but I kind of miss that, especially because I watched Rushmore yesterday. That one doesn't have a big heist or anything. It's also kind of funny, since I'm talking about heists, that George Clooney is in this movie. He voices the title character, Mr. Fox. I mostly just associate him with heist movies because I always think of the Ocean 11 series. So that's just funny to me that even in an animated form, he's still a leader of a big heist that's part, or the movie's more of these kind of littler heists that are put together. But any of the action scenes with that, or the action scenes in general, but especially when the characters are in the middle of a heist, they're running around trying to get to their location and they're going so quickly, that those are really the parts of the movie where the animation itself really just blows me away, Anyway, there's a lot of this I'd forgotten about. I think it was mostly just the beginning as a whole that I had forgotten about, where it's Mr. and Mrs. Fox and they're on their original mission, and Mrs. Fox finds out she's pregnant, and she has Mr. Fox makes the promise of like, hey, I want you to never do any of these missions to get these birds to steal anything ever again for, like, you know, the safety of our family and stuff. I'd completely forgotten about that, which is why I'm glad with rewatching this. I mean, obviously when you rewatch a movie you have to watch it in the beginning, but I feel like that helped with the specific rewatch of remembering, like, oh, okay, that's why emotionally later on when they have there's this part I really like. One of my favorite parts of the movie between Mr. and Mrs. Fox, it's after the characters end up in the sewer, I think right before their big heist and their go for broke rescue mission to rescue Christopherson. There's this part I really like the way it was framed too, where they're in a sewer, and you know, sewers are yucky, but there's like water that's falling down that almost reminded me of like a waterfall. Like visually it looks really cool, where the foxes are talking and she's saying of like, oh, you'd promised me, and or no, wait, that's a different conversation. No, I'm thinking the waterfall scene in the sewer where she tells them like, I love you, but I wish I didn't marry you, and I've been thinking about that ever since I finished the movie. I really like the two of them, their relationship. When you see at the beginning they're doing these heists together, but then when she finds out she's pregnant, Mrs. Fox, you know, picks her family, or having a family, more than doing heists. But then for Mr. Fox's whole thing is like, that's all he's known, of stealing the birds and everything, and he's forced to find a new occupation. And I like that it's kind of treated almost like a midlife crisis, and I appreciate that the movie puts it of like how much is stuff in human years and how much is stuff in fox years, where for humans it could be like 3 days, but then for foxes or any of the animals really, because they all seem to be on the same timeline, it'll be like 2.5 weeks, where it feels more realistic, their reactions to things. But yeah, Mr. Fox, they have the like in Fox years 12 years later or whatever, and now he's working as like a newspaper writer or something, but you could tell he misses doing the heists, and he starts doing them again, and that's what gets everybody in trouble with the farmers trying to kill him and stuff. In that way, it actually kind of reminded me of watching The Incredibles. I think that's isn't it pretty much like the same plot setup of The Incredibles, where Mr. Incredible misses doing the missions and stuff, and he's like secretly doing them behind his wife's back, and then that ends up getting him in trouble, and then the whole family gets involved. Yeah, this is basically like stop motion Wes Anderson Incredibles. The Incredibles is good, but I like this movie better. It's funny to me, it never clicked to me of those similarities. There's something I like with the characters being anthropomorphic animals. You know how that usually means like, oh, they act like humans. I like that they also have just randomly some of their animal traits as well. I think that's really cool. Like there's this part towards the beginning when Mr. Fox is, I think, trying to get a loan from the badger, and they get into this like growling match or whatever, where the camera is like circling around them and stuff. Or anytime a character eats, especially when it's a fox, they like gobble it up. It actually startled my dad at first when Mr. Fox first does that at the beginning, where he was like, whoa. So just that kind of stuff they do. Or Kylie, the I think he's an opossum. He does this thing. I don't know enough about opossums to know. Is it possum or opossum? I swear they call him an opossum. I don't know if it's just a different name for possum. It has this thing where there'll be like a close-up of his face, and there'll be these like swirls in his eyes. It's like a deer in the headlights sort of thing, where he'll just freeze. And I'm assuming that's like, at first I thought, oh, is that sort of reaction exclusive to possums? But then Mr. Fox ends up doing it too at one point, of this sort of like, for him it's like a fear response at one point after getting chased by a rabid dog. But there's all kinds of behavior like that, or the foxes being really good at digging and such. Hold on a minute. Sorry, I just wanted to close my door for a minute. But yeah, the animals have all kinds of like behaviors like that is part of the reason I really like this movie, where they're anthropomorphic in the sense that they like walk upright and wear clothes, and they're really smart and stuff, but then they also have the animal behaviors. But I originally falsely assumed from the beginning of the movie that the animals and the humans just saw the animals as animals, that they didn't know they were like really smart or could talk or whatever. And then you find out later, once Mr. Fox has to get in contact with the farmers, that they're able to understand each other perfectly. Actually, I find that really interesting. I'd completely forgotten about that detail with the movie, where they treat Mr. Fox as like an actual threat and not just like, oh, this wild animal broke into our farms and are stealing our birds or whatever. I think that's probably part of the reason it escalates to the point where it does, where Mr. Fox steals from them originally, and then they destroy his tree, and they do all this other stuff where the animals are forced to live in the sewer. I mean, I guess I should have seen it coming, because Bean's security guard is this rat character, which I know this movie has a really stacked cast and everything. Some of them include the usual Wes Anderson actors. There was two people one of them I didn't even know was in the movie. I didn't like recognize her voice originally, and the other one I wouldn't have guessed who it was. I didn't remember that Meryl Streep voices Mrs. Fox, because it does sound like Meryl Streep a bit, but it's I don't know, maybe because she's like in character. But William Dafoe voices this rat security guard. I like with Meryl Streep as Felicity Fox, I think I sort of recognize her voice a little bit. It just kind of took me a while. But with Dafoe as the rat character, I don't think he's given a name. I think he's just called Rat or something. I didn't recognize his voice at all. So when he popped up in the credits, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, a lot of other people I recognize, you have Bill Murray. Bill Murray's, I think, the person, like almost all of these pretty much, or he's been in at least like 10 or something as the Badger character. I think Jason Schwartzman is Mr. Fox's son, Ash. I know Owen Wilson was the school coach character. I know there's probably others, but yeah, William Dafoe I did not catch as the rat at all. But now that I'm thinking back to it, I'm like, yeah, this seems like a character he plays. I want to talk about the rat character for a minute, because it was always just kind of funny to me. I think my dad and I both laughed whenever he was on screen. Is just sort of mannerisms where he's this treated as this kind of lunatic rat or whatever is how I think the characters refer to him, where he's this rat in this little striped shirt, and he has this little like switchblade and tries to get into fights and characters, and he's always like snapping his little paws or whatever. I didn't really get that, but the way he was doing that and holding the knife just kept making me think of the musical West Side Story a little bit, because I think that's something they sort of do from what I remember. But he doesn't have like a very long role or anything, but I liked his character. But also that should have been the example to me ahead of time of, oh yeah, the humans can't understand the animals, because why else would they trust a rat as their sole security guard for this cider? Like I hadn't really like thought about it until right now, but that makes sense. Let me see who else. I like the kid characters as well. There's 3 of them. There's Mr. Fox's son Ash and his nephew Christopherson, and then there's this other fox that I don't know who she's related to. Her name's Agnes. She doesn't really get like character development other than she's interested in Christopherson. They end up dating. I didn't really know if Ash liked her. It's just like he's very jealous of his cousin. I find Ash's character really interesting, actually, where throughout the movie they're always referring to him as different, but it's in this way where I was thinking like, okay, this is definitely an analogy. What is this an analogy for? Because there's like little things. Some of them I didn't, I think, notice on my last rewatch. Like I didn't notice till this time that when they're at the supermarket at the end, everyone I think is drinking apple juice. Ash is drinking grape juice. There's this thing Mr. Fox says at the beginning, or he's talking to Ash, and he's like, oh, why are you dressed like that? You got your socks tucked into your clothes and you're wearing a cape, because Ash is always wearing this cape, and then when he's kind of part of the heists and stuff, he ends up wearing this rather than the burglar masks that everyone else has, provided by Mr. Fox. Ash ends up making his own that's like a cape made out of like a tube sock or something. There's like little things like that, certain traits he has, or his obsession with being an athlete. I feel like that one's probably more to like trying to fill his father's shoes sort of a thing. And he does get to prove himself at the end, which is really cool. He ends up going to this whole little sort of obstacle course trying to release the rabid dog, and ends up saving everyone at the end, which I finally noticed the detail that the path he goes for that little sort of obstacle course, as I'll call it, is the exact same as the sports game that Christopherson played at the school, that this coach said to Ash, like, yeah, you're improving, whatever, but you're not an athlete. So I thought that was really cool, like proving that he could actually do it and did it really well, while also having to avoid gunfire, mind you. But yeah, I just find Ash a really interesting character, where besides some of those traits I mentioned, he's also seen by the other characters as like really little, and I think one of the characters says he dresses like feminine or something. It didn't really look feminine to me, of like the cape and whatever. But yeah, I'm sure that was probably an analogy for something. At first I thought, like, is it like an analogy for being gay, or is it like the cape part of is supposed to be like a sort of thing as treated like cross-dressing? I don't know, but I find that interesting with this character. But I really like that, you know, throughout the entire movie he's jealous of his cousin for basically being like better at him than anything, but also the cousin is the one that his father is like very, very impressed by. And poor Ash already had a hard time before his cousin showed up, of, you know, trying to kind of impress his father anyway, and now there's competition. But I like that he not only gets to save everybody at the end, but Ash also is the one to save Christopherson. The fact that Christopherson is the one, when they go to try to get Mr. Fox's tail as the necktie back, even though they fail, and that leads to Christopherson getting kidnapped, and then Ash has to be the one to rescue him from the apple crate, which doesn't go the way he expects. If he ends up knocking it off the table, I still find that kind of funny. But I am still kind of thinking of the part when he's trying to get through the grate with Kylie and they can't open it, and Ash, there's this shot where he's just kind of standing up and has his cape flowing in the wind or whatever, and he's like, I'll do it, I'm gonna rescue him, do you know why I can fit through there, I'm little, and then he does. It kind of actually reminded me of me when I was younger. I'm someone that's always been very small, and I could fit into places that other people couldn't, but it was something I feel like I relate to Ash in that sense of like being little in that way, we're almost kind of looked down by others, so then you kind of see it as more of a bad thing, you know, or at least that's how I feel like Ash is probably the character I kind of related to the most for that reason, and maybe also a couple of other things. So I feel like I paid attention to him more in like this specific viewing, I guess. But his cousin Christopherson's also cool, where he at first kind of seems like he's treated as like this the son Mr. Fox almost wished that he had, in a sense of he's the one that the main character seems to like praise more and stuff, even though he doesn't want to be involved with the heists and doesn't like lying and whatever. But then I like that both the boys end up helping Mr. Fox and Kylie at the end, when they're, you know, once they rescue Christopherson and stuff, they all sort of like work together and everything. That was pretty nice. All of the action scenes in this are really cool, where it starts out as these sort of mini heists to like, oh, we're gonna go and rob Mr. Bean or Mr. whatever. Why am I forgetting all their names? It's like literally in the song, and they all start with B anyway. Where it's like these mini heists. I was a little bummed that the one for whoever the middle guy is, you don't really get to see much of it. And I do like the way it was done though, where it's like you see them sneaking into this building and leaving through these like security cameras. That was cool, but I kind of wish we got to see the whole thing. But like, given the events of the movie and how kind of fast things need to go, I understand why it's like that. Or I like the part when they're trying to originally steal the cider after they lock the rat in the little basement thing or whatever, and Mr. Bean's wife comes in, but she has the like cataracts on her eyes or whatever it is where she can't really see, and she removes the bottle where Mr. Fox is. I don't think she looks like right at him, but she should have, like, someone with better eyesight, I should say, should have like noticed him there or something, or should have noticed more things. But then it's then it's revealed that her eyesight's actually okay from what I remember. She the characters think they have an easy way out later on, and then she shows up with like a knife or something, and she's trying to kill them. But yeah, that scene was like a little bit tense. Or when the two boys, they end up sneaking to steal the necktie. I thought the setting of that was interesting, where it's, I think, literally just inside of Mr. Bean's house or something. But you know, the characters are so tiny because they're like foxes and stuff. They're pretty small. But then the human stuff is like a bit bigger than them. But the way the furniture is set, it makes everything look even more far away from them. Like, you understand the tininess, I should say, of the characters. Like, I actually forgot how small they were, because originally you're just around the you're just around the animal characters, so you know, everything is sized for them. But then you get to see the human characters and you realize how small all of the animals are. I mean, I think that's the thing that sort of works, is they're all like these small woodland animals of like, and I mean, they're anthropomorphic too, so they all have to be sort of similar sizes, not like they're like literal actual size. I can imagine badger's probably bigger than like a fox or whatever. I mean, some of them are scaled a bit more, where there's this like really tiny mouse. I think the mouse was also voiced by someone famous. I don't remember though. Most of the characters are, there's like this really tiny mouse who's like a tailor, and there's one point where he's talking to Mr. Fox and he's like, hey, I want to fight too, and Mr. Fox looks down at him, and the mouse is just so small. It's like this little field mouse or something. So I think the designs of all the characters are cool, where they're just like these little animals, but they have their own outfits and roles. Like, they all have like normal sort of human jobs originally, but then at the end, I really like Mr. Fox's speech at the end when they're in the sewer, and he's like, you know what, I see all of your insert human professions here, but I also see a bunch of wild animals. Then he has to rely on all their animal skills of like seeing in the dark or explosives, or well, I mean, I don't think badgers work with explosives, but you know what I mean. That was actually kind of funny though, and relying on that to be able to rescue everyone. It's this whole thing where it's interesting now that I think about it, where the characters start off where they live in little houses and they have little jobs and stuff. It almost reminds me of like Peter Rabbit in a sort of way, or like Winnie the Pooh, that kind of stuff, where the animals have their own little like animal town, as you can call it, but they all have like human jobs. They're very human like, and then as the movie goes forward, they're like kind of stripped of all of that, really, where they go from living in their trees and whatever, and then they all have to live like underground. But then it's like, hey, they stole all this food, they're gonna have this fancy dinner, and then they ended up getting flooded out, and then they have to live in a sewer where, I mean, they still have like their clothes and stuff, but they don't have any of their foods or their animal furniture or anything. They just have to live in a sewer, and they have to actually stay in the sewer for like the rest of the movie and everything. I completely forgot about that. And then they have to rely on like their wild animal abilities at the end to kind of like get back at the humans and stuff. But I do find that there's something else I was gonna say with that. I don't remember. But then at the end, I find the grocery store ending really interesting, actually. I think I felt almost disappointed by it first. I feel like I didn't really like get it. I mean, maybe I still don't, but you know, when I originally watched it, it sort of makes it bittersweet in a way, where it's like their homes are gone. They don't even get to live in the mine anymore, you know, where it was at least in like holes and stuff. They're living in sewers where they'd have to eat trash. They're not really supposed to be, you know, they're like woodland animals. They're not really supposed to be living in a sewer. But then they end up finding the supermarket. So it's like, on one hand, they don't have any of their homes or furniture, but they're kind of trying to make the best of it. But then they find the supermarket, and now they have access to all the food they want. And I like when Mr. Fox gives the speech to like his family and stuff, where it's like they sort of have the versions of the food that they were trying to take originally, except like it's made out of artificial bird, or the juice is not made out of real apples. So they couldn't get the thing they were trying to get the whole movie of like the foods and stuff, at the end. But Mr. Fox understands like the value of family now, and they don't have like the real versions of the food in the sense where it's the artificial stuff, it's the grocery store stuff, the same stuff that like everyone else ends up with, but they have access to like an entire grocery store where they, unless they call pest control, they're basically not going to go hungry again. So in that sense, they sort of win. And I mean, Mr. Fox did start the movie poor, where they lived in like the hole and stuff because he couldn't do his job of stealing the birds and whatnot. And now they live in a sewer, but now like everyone's poor, but now they all have food. So it like sort of evens out, I guess. I mean, I kind of wish they didn't have to live in a sewer by the end. If they could have at least stayed in the mine or something, and they probably can't go back to living in the forest for a while. Maybe eventually they would, but they at least get the grocery store. And they reveal about Mrs. Fox being pregnant again. I like whenever they do that. She lights up in a way that it looks like she's almost replaced, instead of with a puppet with like a little lamp or something. That's how brightly she ends up glowing. That was interesting, actually. I completely forgot she ends up pregnant at the end, and then both her and Mr. Fox end up doing the glowing thing. And then I like that they have the little dance party at the end in the supermarket of like, yay, we found the supermarket sort of thing. And now all of the animals, I find that interesting too, actually, that they originally lived with their own little families in their little houses in the forest and whatnot, and now they all live together in the sewer, and they have access to the supermarket. Like, they all kind of become a community in a sense at the end. And Mr. Fox talking about his tale too. I have like so many things to talk about this movie. His tale I find interesting. I just remembered about it because of like the state it ends up in at the end, where he originally has a tail, it gets shot off, they try to take the tail back, the tail gets torn up by that dog, and then he ends up with his tail at the end where it's detachable now, but it's kind of like the fur's torn off in places and it's never going to get better. But at least he has the tail again. I feel like it makes me think of sort of the state of the movie at the end, or him as a character of like, he's a little beaten up now in a sense, but he's still sort of himself. He's still got the tail, he's still got his family and everything. Hold on, let me actually look at my notes. I did write a couple of notes, not really much, I think, because I was just so absorbed in the movie. I was just really focused on it, and I didn't really want to write notes. I wanted to just enjoy it and stuff. I like the thing where instead of actually using curse words, they just say the word cuss to put in whatever curse word they're trying to say. I feel like in the context of most of the scenes, I feel like the word they're probably trying to use most of the time was fuck, but I feel like in some conversations in the movie it could have been like other words, but I thought that was interesting. I'm assuming this movie's probably PG. It seems like it is, so I thought that was a good way to get away with the, okay, you can't like actually say a curse word here. But I feel like with how strongly they say the word cuss, or how they're using it in the sentences, it absolutely works as getting the point across of like exactly what word they're trying to say. I wish movies like this kind of did that more, or ones that are, I'm assuming, PG or whatever, kind of did that more often, because it ends up being really funny, but it also works perfectly. I just always find that interesting when something will substitute a word that's like the same letters or whatever, or like The Good Place has a similar thing where they change around the letters for saying certain curse words or whatever. I always kind of prefer that, of like having a substitute curse word rather than having just like a bleep noise or something for comedy's sake. It just ends up becoming funnier, and having an actual physical word to say, I think, kind of gets the cursing. It makes it seem more natural in that sense. Let's see, what else? I also like the farmer characters as well. I like how they end up getting described at the beginning in like these very specific ways. Of one of them where it's like if you put him in any shallow end of a pool, he'd barely be able to keep his chin up. Or one of them is the exact weight of a small rhinoceros. Just the kind of little tidbits about characters that you would only find in a Wes Anderson movie, of like how detailed and specific it ends up getting, where all three of the farmers' characters, they only eat whatever it is they make. I find that really interesting, where one of them has 12 chickens every single day. There's another one that lives off of cider. There's another one that I think has pies or something stuffed, or no, it's like donuts stuffed with goose liver, which sounds, I don't know what goose liver sounds like. That's the part I'd like, but I don't really like donuts, and I feel like a donut stuffed with something like goose liver sounds like it would be kind of gross. But yeah, I like the way the three farmers are described at the beginning. I love the little song that's associated with them. It's I was actually kind of humming it a little bit as I was trying to find the thumbnail for this video. But the farmer characters, it's funny to me that it's like two of them kind of, like, they're mad about Mr. Fox, but they're willing to just kind of let it go of like, oh, he stole some of our chickens and stuff or whatever. But then the third one, Bean, I feel like out of the three of them is kind of the main villain. I also kind of keep thinking about him too, because there's this one part when they introduce him and he's holding a gun, but it's in the same way that sometimes the actors that play James Bond do when they're doing the promotional images, where it's like they have their arm kind of over their chest and the gun sort of pointing up. I saw that exact pose and I'm like, wait a minute, I know that pose. But they describe him as like being as smart as a whip and probably the scariest man currently alive, was a description I found really funny. But he's the one where, you know, he meets the other two farmers after, and he's the last one that Mr. Fox steals from, and he's like, oh, hey, so this fox stole from you guys? And they're like, oh, yeah, you know, he's really smart, whatever. And Bean's the one that's like, okay, we need to fucking kill this guy, basically. And the lengths the farmers go to, because, I mean, okay, Mr. Fox does steal from them, but it's not actually that much. I mean, eventually later on, he does steal everything that they own, and they try to drown him, and that's how the characters live in the sewers and stuff. And I'm like, okay, that I understand, but the fact that originally, I mean, he does steal from all three of them, but it's not that much stuff, really. I think it's only like a couple bottles of the cider. Looked like maybe 2 to 4 of the chickens. I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit because, or whatever the opposite of exaggerating is, because you get to see his pantry later on when Mrs. Fox goes in there and she's like, and she sees all the food, and it's like stuffed with meats at the end. But there was like at least 2 or 3 people he stole that had specific meats, so it does kind of end up, but he only raids their places like one time for each person, and then, I mean, maybe he would have tried to press his luck again, I don't know, but it's really not that much. I guess it's more of the insult of like, oh, this like sentient little animal stole from us, we gotta like kill him. And I mean, I guess knowing Mr. Fox, maybe eventually he would have tried to steal from them. I almost wish we could have seen how it would have played out, of like once he stole from them originally, you know, if he was just gonna stop, because he originally does phrase it on one hand as like, this is my final mission, but on the other hand, it's like the dude loves stealing stuff. You know, he probably would have stolen other things, whatever, or like how the 2 kids, they end up stealing the desserts for Mr. Bean's wife or whatever, and that ends up getting them in trouble later. Oh, that's something I forgot to mention with Ash, actually, that, you know, a lot of the characters kind of treat him at the beginning of like him not really taking after Mr. Fox, but he's the one that ends up making the plan to Christopherson of like, okay, we're gonna go and steal my dad's tail back. And in that moment of like the planning and being a high risk taker and going to try to do this own little mission, in a sense, he's like very much like his dad. Like he kind of becomes more like his dad as the movie goes on. But yeah, the lengths the farmers go to is crazy, where they destroy that tree. Seeing them destroy the tree actually made me kind of sad. It was a really cool tree and stuff. And then the animals are forced underground, and then they try to blow them up, I think. And then they end up drowning them, and it's kind of almost like a hope spot in the sense where the animals are about to have their dinner, you know, after they stole all this food, and they get drowned out. So then the food, that was the thing that like almost got me a little angry, in a sense of not just like, oh, the food was stolen and the food was going to be eaten, you know, but that the what is it I'm trying to say, the food was destroyed. The food that they were mad about that had got stolen by the animals, they ended up destroying by flooding. No one got to eat that food, and it was everything that had been stolen. And I'm thinking in my head, because I always hate this with stuff, of like, oh, they wasted all that food. It like bothered me. And then the characters end up going hungry and stuff, so they never got to eat that feast. You know, I mean, I bet they would have a little bit if Mr. Fox did give that toast, but you know, he's gonna do what he's gonna do, I guess. Shoot, there was something else I was gonna talk about. Hold on, let me pause to think about it. What was it? Okay, I remember what it was. There's this part, I'm probably gonna have to look it up later, to be honest, to like figure out exactly what it means. I didn't really think of anything of it the first time I watched the movie, but this time I'm like, oh, okay, I could tell this is supposed to be a meaningful moment. Throughout the movie, Mr. Fox says how he has a phobia of wolves, and Kylie keeps bringing up wolves, and Mr. Fox looks kind of a little freaked out. Or not freaked out, but he's like, why are you bringing up wolves? Let's not talk about that. And then as the characters, you know, Kylie, Mr. Fox, Christopherson, and Ash, they're driving away after having rescued Christopherson. They're going back home to everybody. And on the way, they end up seeing this wolf who's in this wintry area, which I find kind of interesting, these snowy mountains, because the rest of the land of where the movie takes place, it's fall, so everything's blanketed in orange and yellow and everything, but the wolf is in specifically a winter area in these mountains. I find the encounter with the wolf really interesting. There's probably a lot of meanings towards it. You know, if like Mr. Fox tries to talk to him, the wolf, and the wolf, I guess, can't speak. Just the idea of the wolf is not as anthropomorphized, or isn't anthropomorphized as the main characters. I mean, I guess you sort of see one example of that already with the dog that has the rabies, because it can't speak either, and it just acts like a normal dog. Or actually, I think really all the beetles do. So at first I was thinking, oh, maybe it's only domesticated animals that don't have the ability to speak, but this wolf is like a wild wolf. And it's interesting because the characters, they refer to themselves as wild occasionally, but they're really not. Like, they still have the animal habits, of course, but they talk like people, and they're intelligent, and they have like human jobs and everything. But the wolf, it's like the first time you're really seeing a wild animal, you know, not anthropomorphized, not a domesticated dog that belongs to people or anything, just this wild animal. Though I am wondering about that, because there's a part where Mr. Fox raises his fist in the air and the wolf does the same thing. I don't know if he's just matching the motion or how the wolf would be able to do that, but I guess it's showing like solidarity and stuff. But I just find it interesting the way they sort of stare at the wolf when it stares at them. It doesn't try to attack them or anything. I mean, at first I was thinking, okay, it's probably far away because of the snow thing, but maybe not. I feel like sometimes it's, with the characters being so small and the movie being stop motion, and a lot of Wes Anderson movies sort of have this dollhouse look to them anyway, even for not buildings, even for just outside locations, that it always looks really cool, but I feel like it does make it hard to judge scale of how far away things are from each other, because the wolf ends up kind of looking up in the background. I mean, you've heard me mention with several of his films that they almost remind me of like the sets for a play. I feel like this one qualifies as well, like the way things are in the background and stuff. But yeah, the wolf scene I find interesting, where they just kind of all stare at each other, and then Mr. Fox tells them to wish the wolf good luck. There's probably more meaning to it, but I don't know. But I just wanted to acknowledge that scene and be like, hey, that was actually pretty cool. Kind of gives more to think about, really. Let me check my notes. Is there anything else? No, not really. In terms of like Wes Anderson main protagonists, I would say Mr. Fox is definitely up there for me. His whole journey, where he starts out like kind of selfish and doing these heists, knowing that he's like breaking his promise to his wife, and then he gets everyone in trouble and doesn't really seem like he feels that bad about it at first, where he's like, he keeps trying to make the best of the situation and everything, and come up with the plans of like, we got to get back to these farmers, and that's treated as more important to him. and then, you know, everyone ends up in the sewers, and it's like you kind of hit rock bottom, and then he kind of just seems to reject help or just roping certain people into his schemes, and then at the end, you know, he doesn't seem to get mad at his son helping him rescue Christopherson, and then he ends up asking everybody's help for the whole heist, and that's one of the ones that goes off like almost perfectly, you know, except for like the rabid dog stuff and everything. You know, but I found that really interesting. At the end, he has to rely on everyone, and like I mentioned earlier, they all kind of end up as a community at the end, and he's going to share all the food at the supermarket. Like, he's sort of become a better person and is learning not to take other people for granted. I think it just makes him a cool character, honestly. I don't remember if George Clooney voices any other characters in Wes Anderson movies. I'm assuming this is the only one. I don't really remember him in any others, but I just find it funny that, you know, a lot of the title characters in these movies are usually someone that's in these movies a lot, or there's like multiple main characters. But this is one where it's just like one person really. But yeah, I think George Clooney was a good fit for this role. This feels like one of his other kind of characters, or like I was saying, this kind of movie reminds me a lot of like the Ocean 11 movies, honestly. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all my thoughts with this. It's really good. It's definitely somewhere in my top 5. I don't know where. So Isle of Dogs might be next. It depends, actually, as my dad's the one that's ordering these. I don't know when we'll end up getting it, because it took like I said, like 3.5 months for Rushmore and Fantastic Mr. Fox to get here. So if we're ordering Isle of Dogs potentially now, it might be another couple more months. And I've at this point now watched all of the Wes Anderson DVDs I currently own. So unless I go to like a swap meet or something and I find another one, which I got lucky finding the, what was it? I think it was The Life Aquatic. It's either that one or one of the other ones I found at a swap meet, which I was so lucky that ended up working perfectly fine, DVD-wise and everything. Because Fantastic Mr. Fox, it didn't work at first, and I was like, oh man, I've been like waiting for this movie for so long. But it was worth the wait. But yeah, if I don't find any others at like a swap meet, it might be a couple of months or something until there's potentially another Wes Anderson review. I'm probably not gonna go and try to get all of these in DVDs. There's some of these movies I like more than others. That I don't feel like I need all of them on DVD. It is kind of nice, but at least I already have some of my favorites already. Off the top of my head, I don't think there's some that I'm missing, and there's some that are on streaming services as well. Like I think The Phoenician Scheme is on Peacock. I can't remember if I did a review of that one or not. Probably. But yeah, you're probably not going to get a video of like every single one of these from me, just kind of the ones I'm sort of, I guess, collecting on DVD now, or just some of the ones I like, because I think I've watched a good amount. Let me actually pause and Google to see how many I have left, just out of curiosity. Okay, so from what I can remember, I haven't talked about Asteroid City yet. I don't think I did a review of that. I don't have Isle of Dogs. I haven't seen that since the first time I watched it, so I know for sure I haven't done that one yet. I honestly don't really remember with The Phoenician Scheme. I forgot I own Darjeeling Limited now. Did The French Dispatch, Grand Budapest Hotel, Moonrise Kingdom. I think it's only like 2 or 3 that, yeah, because I can't remember if I did The Phoenician Scheme, but I know for sure I haven't done Asteroid City or Isle of Dogs yet. So Isle of Dogs I might get to do at some point. I don't think I'm going to buy Asteroid City on DVD, but I think it's on like Peacock or something. I know it's on some streaming service, so I might just track that one down and rewatch it, just because I feel like I need to rewatch it anyway. I felt kind of meh about it the first time I watched it. With some of these, sometimes they either go too fast or whatever. Like, I didn't really care for the Darjeeling Limited either, but I at least liked it a bit more on a rewatch. Or there's ones like French Dispatch where it was like really confusing for me at first because there was a lot going on, and now I really like that one. And then there's also some short films as well. Like there's like at least 3 or 4 of them Yeah, they're on Netflix. Ratcatcher, Poison, The Swan, Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. I've seen all of those already, but they're pretty short. I wouldn't mind doing I'd like to rewatch them again, honestly. Though if I do, I might make a video where it's just talking about all four of them. And then there's some others, like actual shorts, apparently, like short films. I didn't know about some of these. Like there's one called Come Together. I'm just reading off of these on like Letterboxd, by the way. I think there's one that's called Girl from Jupiter. I think there's like at least 4, it looks like. Or no, at least like 2 or 3. I'm not really sure. Maybe I'll try to track those down too. But yeah, there's only like 2 or 3 in terms of actual movies left. So you might get some of those at some point. That would be nice to have like a video for all of them, honestly. But the Netflix shorts, I'd like to rewatch at some point and do a video of. And I have Netflix, so assuming if they're still on there, that might actually be the next thing, either that or Isle of Dogs. It all just kind of depends, really. But I like to just keep you updated because I really like going through with these, talking about these Wes Anderson movies and stuff. But yeah, that's Fantastic Mr. Fox. I really, really like this one. I don't know if I'll do like a ranking eventually of all of these. I originally considered it, but there's such a long time gap between when I'm able to watch these. It just all depends on when the DVDs get here. I'm kind of forgetting the order I had in my head. But I mean, I'm kind of just talking about them, sort of mentally ranking them like as I'm going through these. So you're kind of getting the picture, really. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.